Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Revere End podcast. Again, myself and Billy are joined in person to discuss Norwich's, win or reaction to the international break. I guess this kind of podcast is going to be more dissecting that and then looking ahead at Birmingham. Now, I will say as a disclaimer that I didn't watch the game in its entirety. I'll get that out early. I've tried to catch up as much as I can, but I think to be fair, I'll probably be more kind of looking at Billy's opinion for this game, for the kind of nitty gritty bits as opposed to like the highlights or the well known details, if you like. But Billy, how are you doing? It's a week on since our kind of meltdown last time.
Yeah, and it's only a few hours since my meltdown on Twitter as well at half time, but I feel like I probably should be a little bit more excited, optimistic following what was a very dramatic game.
It certainly was dramatic. That's one word for it.
I don't know if it's just my pessimism, but unfortunately I'm not as ecstatic as maybe I should be. I don't know if that's me being overly critical, which we'll get into, but it was an interesting game for sure.
Yeah, I think you summed up in your Norwich Talk preview. If you haven't watched, by the way, definitely give it a watch. When you said about for the neutral, it's great. Apart from if you're the neutral, you're not watching Norwich versus Rotherham.
You're not spending the £10.
It was one of those ones where you kind of love to be at because it'd be like a proper kind of gritty win or just like proper championship game. But I guess kind of without getting too far ahead of ourselves, if we look at the team, because obviously that's probably where the most, not necessarily shocks, because I think, let's be kind of real, that there was obviously some departures late on in the window, and also with a mixture of that, there was some injuries which we kind of knew would affect the team. So in terms of like in goal, I guess obviously Tim Krul, we expected that. He had a relatively successful international breakaway with the Dutch national team, which is crazy to say still as a championship goalie when they're one of the best ranked national teams in the country, in the world, not in the country. Sorry. And then if you look at the defence, obviously that the only kind of player that we saw come in was Grant Hanley at the back next to Ben Gibson. Now, obviously, we haven't really seen much of Grant Hanley for quite some time now, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But to be fair, from what we saw of Grant Hanley towards, well, kind of point of where he got injured before the kind of break for COVID, I think it was when.
Yeah, I don't think we saw him because we had that whole situation where we just had Godfrey and Tim Closer as
that was it, wasn't it?
As our centre back options, but it was I must have completely missed the Zimmerman news.
No, I did think that, but no, I do recall him saying that he was a potential doubt and that he probably wasn't going to make the game.
Yeah, I think sometimes the news just passes you by.
There's too many injury news. That's
yeah,
the problem.
that is the issue. But I said that in the match review which I done for Norwich Talk. If you want maybe more of a succinct sort of summary, it was fairly short after the I did allow myself an hour or two just to simmer and calm down a little bit, but I think that those two performances from Ben Gibson and Grant Hanley and the partnership that they formed does have to be caveated with the fact that they have played such little football over the past 6 to 12 months really, and at times that was evident, although it's a very championship pairing, isn't it, in defence there with those two? And
experienced pairing, to be fair.
Yeah, but it's not one that I would necessarily have predicted would be a Daniel Farke in our fourth season. I like the two players individually, but it was an interesting pairing, and we know that Hanley has improved. Well, from what we saw in the Premier League, had improved quite considerably his distribution and his sort of playing out from the back capabilities. But it'll be interesting to see if those two are the two that Farke goes with, if he brings them back, because I mean I said in a review that obviously I felt it was a little bit harsh on him, and then I found out he was injured, but I think Farke likes Zimmerman, and I think I would presume he'd be back if fit.
I know they're kind of all his men in a way because they're all signed under him, but Zimmerman really kind of epitomises the Daniel Farke way of football in a way.
You can usually always put
he's one of the first
signings in one or two boxes, can't you? There's very few where it'd be hard to know entirely who maybe was sort of forefronting the signing. Basically, if you're German, Farke probably is highlighted. If you're English, then it's probably Weber.
I think it was if he had all of his defenders, all of his 4 defenders or whatever we have available.
3? Is it 3 now?
3. I don't even know anymore. We probably have 2 if we're lucky. We'll start playing with fullbacks, like Kyle Walker or something. In terms of, I guess the point I was going to say was, if we had everyone fit, he's not going to pick those 2, really, is I guess what I was trying to say.
I doubt it, no.
But in terms of, I guess if we can, because we're probably going to look more individually at their performance, so if we kind of go through the team, in terms of the kind of central defensive midfielder pairing, it's, I guess, the pairing which we're probably going to be becoming quite accustomed to, and not for the wrong reasons, really, from what I've seen him, from not just previous games, but also heard about the Rotherham game as well, in Lucas Rupp and Oliver Skipp. Lucas Rupp, the man who, no matter what he does, will be criticised nonetheless.
It's his opinion, doesn't he? And I just don't get the whole narrative around Lucas Rupp. Like, that one week you're talking, everybody suddenly is jumping on the ship to defend him, and then it's like, okay, he has a sort of mediocre or all right average game, and then everybody's sort of out saying, "Oh, I don't see what Lucas Rupp offers us." Yeah. I mean, it's harsh because then they bring out the tribal comparisons, and I think it's an argument that can never really be won or decided. And Norwich have 3 number 8s at the moment. Yeah. In Rupp, McLean, and Vrancic, and really
none of them are good enough, to be honest.
None of them are good enough, really. I think Rupp is the best of the 3.
I would agree.
How good Rupp is, and we'll get into it. We'll get into it in due course. But there is part of me that is extremely frustrated at the fact we're now 4 seasons into this project, and we've got a centre-back pairing, which, all right, okay, yeah, it's a good championship one, but again, it's not really an ideal one, if we're being honest, for what we expected. I like Ben Gibson a lot, and I think Grant Hanley has capabilities, but nobody is going to be sat here and say that was the centre-back pairing that they wanted once this project was under the way, which is a little bit worrying's maybe a little bit strong. Ollie Skipp's obviously a wonderful signing, and has probably been our best player this season 100%. So far. But that number 8 position is so crucial to any team that wants to control the park and control the ball and play out through the thirds and play football that way. And the fact there's still a debate over maybe who's the best or what type of midfielder Norwich want. For me, that is a little bit worrying.
I think as well, the way I break it down is that I know and again, we spoke about it a lot, about like the identity that we kind of want to go into the season with. And I know a lot of people are trying to kind of use that word and say, what is our identity at the minute? And when you kind of break our team down and you look at it, I know we've obviously got notably 5 assets, or had 5 assets to a degree. And I'm not saying that I expect all 11 players to be under 22 and, £50 million players. But if you really break it down this year, have we gone for quality and experience, or have we gone for, kind of youthful players? Because if you look at, our centre-back pairing, for example, they're kind of experienced. Yeah, you give them that, but is it the quality? Is it the youth? You haven't really got that. Even at like left-back with Quintilla, I wouldn't really put him under that kind of young asset. And then you look at someone like a number 8. A number 8 would be a perfect role to kind of nurture a player right now. And all we've got is 29-year-old Lucas Rupp, 30-year-old Mario Vrancic, and 28-year-old Kenny McLean. So I don't know. It's tough, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting because it was only a few weeks ago we were sat here and say this is probably the strongest squad Norwich have ever had. Certainly in our time following them, and then you have maybe 3 or 4 departures, and it's all of a sudden looking quite bleak. And the thing is that when I think the first time I probably made a similar statement was when I think McCallum went out on loan. Yeah. And I said, well, we've probably got enough options there. But the problem is that argument is only sort of relevant for sort of like 1 or 2 positions. Like when you're talking about the fact that Max Aarons is only really our only option at right back, with Barrowmount and Mumba not having much senior football. You're then looking at a left back option which is non-existent. You're then looking at a centre back pairing which we have currently 2 fit. We've sold one, one's out on loan, and you're then talking about maybe looking towards the academy, which like let me just get that straight, I'm fine with and I'm so okay with, but in context and in moderation, like you can't just rid the squad of talent and then bring back like the old guard and bring in like youth players. And I think Norwich haven't got that balance right at all now, because we've seen too many sales, too many exits for fringe players or players who are on the periphery. and the squad is now looking quite bare, especially in defence.
I think obviously since the last one we kind of can digest what's happened in the window. Now obviously there's a lot of good news around the fact that we've got Todd Cantwell and Buendia. Obviously we know Todd Cantwell didn't feature, but I'd still obviously consider him part of the squad clearly until January. But on the whole, it was quite demoralising seeing so many cases of people being injured or people leaving, and the first word we were hearing is almost like no replacement, and this has happened. I remember, I think it was Paddy Davitt when he broke the news about Onel Hernandez said that there is no signs of replacement or no want to kind of get anyone in, whether it be a loan deal at the end of the window. And I think, as much as I guess it might be a smart decision, I don't know. I guess we're both fans of Josh Martin, and as we'll talk in a moment, we've seen kind of Adam Eden now go out and float on towards that left wing. And like we said, we're kind of all for the opportunity. I just feel like we're just leaving ourselves a little bit dry in too many areas, and I'd have thought after how bad it went last year in the Premier League, in a championship season where you're playing Saturday, Tuesday, you'd have thought they'd had the kind of experience at this point to go, actually, let's bring in another centre back. Or even if it was because I feel like now we're left wing, we're really, really in a tricky situation for the next kind of 3 months. I feel like left back, right back, centre back, and even to a degree right mid.
It's the whole team, isn't it?
I think the only position we're really comfortable on is striker.
Yeah.
And the two CDMs, to be honest.
That's the thing, is like, you can look at an O'Neill injury and go, okay, that opens the door for a Josh Martin, which, as an isolated incident, like me and you are both behind, and I think that is what this club's about. But for me, we haven't seen Josh Martin play this season so far, aside from quite a pleasing performance against Luton. And it's happening, like you say, in one too many areas. It's okay if it's left mid and right back, or left back and right mid, but the fact that after last season, which I think I'm not going to say it was the solitary factor in us getting relegated, but the centre back injuries was a huge loss, and every team has injuries, but it just disrupted the whole spine of the team. And there's no one watched Norwich last season and gone, okay, yeah, do you know what? You had 4 centre backs. I think you could do a 3. Like the guy who I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name in the academy, who's supposed to be quite good. Omo, yeah. He could come through and be brilliant. And again, like that is an isolated incident. I'm okay with. But you're now looking at right back, centre back, left mid, right mid, maybe even centre mid.
Yeah.
Options. I mean, let's not even beat around the bush here. Like, if Tim Krul gets injured, can you actually imagine what's going to happen? Like, we've got a keeper who, with all due respect, we are not comfortable with in goal, and Daniel Barden, who we all know his level really.
It would be a very almost like when John Ruddy got that injured that year. We had Mark Bunn for about 6 months of the season.
I think Mark Bunn is a better option. Like
no. Well, not now. Carlo Nash and Mark Bunn. What a time. I guess as well, just to kind of add to your point about last year, I think the problem is when you have such an injury crisis, it kind of glosses over a lot of actual other issues which can kind of be covered under an umbrella of, well, we did this because of the fact that we had 2 centre-backs fit. And I feel like kind of upon reflection, how we've gone into this season, that's been highlighted furthermore because we had a lot more issues than just centre-backs last year. And again, I don't want to kind of dwell on that, but at the same time, I guess it's just a little bit more concerning that I felt like going into this year, it was like, look, everything that's gone wrong has gone wrong. We learnt the first season, then we went up to the second season. We've had to learn the third season. Now the next season, let's react. Let's do something. Let's be proactive. Whereas right now, it just feels like, unless they've got some kind of plan or there's some players that we don't know about, typically with Daniel Farke, he doesn't necessarily throw them in because he has to with a lot of the younger players. He likes to integrate them in and give them the opportunity when he feels like it's necessary. And I just don't like the fact that I feel like we're almost going to be forced to pay these players. I don't want Omo to come into the defence and be like, well, look, you're here not because we feel like you're ready, because we have no other options. And likewise with Josh Martin, I think he's going to be a great player, but do we want to see Josh Martin thrown in too early and be in a position where we maybe not feel like he's ready for that level, and then that kind of stunt his progress as well. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think again, like with everything, there's a lot of what ifs, but that's my nervous thing, is that we've left ourselves with a lot of what ifs, and I feel like after last year, that was the one thing I'd have hoped that we'd have learned from.
Completely agree.
In terms of, I guess, looking at that kind of front three across the middle, now we've got Marco Stiepermann, who was actually a doubt as well for this game. Not that you'd have seen that in the press, but he was a doubt. And we also have Adam Eder out on the left, which I was very surprised at when I first saw. I won't lie, because I guess I wasn't surprised when I saw that John Hugo was up top, but I just felt like, really, can he kind of play out on the wing?
Well, it's something that has been, I suppose, inferred, and they've sort of hinted at the fact that Eder could play out wide. I've never really been convinced, because I think, like, you look at Eder's best strengths, it's like that power.
Yeah.
And I think he's got real quick feet for like a sort of big lad. Like, it's such a cliche, but like, he's got quick feet for a big lad. But like, Eder is best in the box, and he's best essentially. And again, you just look, even like, there are probably certain systems that could utilise Eder out wide, but I really don't. There's nothing about Farke's tactics in the last 3 or 4 years that have made me go, okay, yeah, Adam Eder could be a success out wide. And
well, he doesn't fit the mould, because theoretically, like, we'd have a much smaller, more kind of trickier winger that wants to almost play as a centre attacking mid, and Adam Eder's the complete opposite. You know, I think the only thing that I'd say which is good, which I kind of just know from him, is that he's very 2-footed, which is good. You know, the ability on, especially on the wing, to kind of be able to cut in or, you know, hit the byline. He's got that strength. I just feel like he was more wasted out wide.
I think it probably was like a needs must, like you say. The O'Neill injury is a huge blow, first and foremost, but it was also completely unexpected, obviously. And you're then looking, okay, well, if Placate is not fit, and if you don't want to chuck Josh Martin in the deep end, then that is your only option. But and also, like, let's not forget, like, Todd Campbell, like, obviously did have a fairly good season last year,
and he was injured as well.
And he was injured again, yeah,
whatever we know about that.
But hopefully Todd comes back, and hopefully the squad maybe resembles something a bit more that we'd expect. But in terms of Hugel up front, I was surprised, although I think it makes sense considering he was the only centre forward to not be on international duty.
Yeah,
so that, I think that's probably played in his favour.
I was really happy when I saw that.
Yeah, but that's because you're a Hugel fanboy.
But not even that as well, because I think for Pookie, I think he needed not a break, but I think he needed someone. I think someone else deserved to play instead of him.
That was a big point that we said on the last podcast, wasn't it?
And I think, to be fair, from Hugel, he summarised everything that I love about a striker in the way that he did nothing for 90 minutes, but when you needed him in that moment, he did what very little Norwich players under Daniel Farke has done, and scored a penalty. You know, I watched the highlights back, but I if that counts for anything nowadays, and the confidence he had with that penalty.
Yeah, I think there's no doubting Hugel's qualities, and maybe you're getting two sides of the coin here in terms of Hugel, because there's no doubt that Hugel's a good championship player, and but is Hugel a good championship player for Norwich? And I think that's where my questions still lie. Like, I didn't think it felt a little bit reactive to Rotherham, and maybe that is more of a general point. Like, I'm looking at that front four, going, well, you've got 3 guys over 6 foot. Like, that is not how Farke plays this team. So that was maybe my only criticism. It felt a little bit reactive, and I've always felt like Norwich are the best when they play their own game, and they don't match teams up for their strengths.
Well, I think again it's really tough because like you say, with the injuries, we're kind of hindered to playing our best lineup, and I think ideally, if we're being honest, I think our best lineup still in terms of the way that we play football is the almost kind of Todd. I guess Todd, Stiepermann, Emmy with Pookie. I think there's no hiding. That's going to be our best way of playing football through the final thirds, because they're the players that kind of built this team, and I guess are kind of more suited to that style of play. I think it's just nice for me to see, because I think the thing is with Hugo, from what I've gathered, is that he didn't have the best game. He didn't really do much in the 90 minutes. The only kind of 2 moments that I'd say where I really saw him is the own goal. The reason why that own goal went in was because of 3 factors. An excellent bit of play, including the pass from Emi Buendia, through to Max Aarons. A fantastic run and probably one of the best crosses you'll see from Max Aarons, who, in all honesty, I think we've said it on here before as well, has been criticised for his. Well, he's been criticised for his crossing before because he's not always been very good at crossing. I think he's very hit and miss. I think he was the same with Jamal Lewis, but that ball was unbelievable. And Jordan Hugill got into an area where the defender knew if he left it, it was a goal.
Yeah.
And I think that was the three parts for me. If that's Teemu Pukki, I just don't think he's in the same area.
And I also don't think Aarons is so insistent on crossing that ball first time.
And that's what I love about it. The only disappointment I had from looking back statistically was I think the lack of crosses we actually put in. And it was almost ironic that when we had a big target man or two big target men, if that ball comes in from Buendia or Aarons, you've got Adam Eder at the back post and Jordan Hugill in the middle. That's a great target or targets to aim for.
But I think that just raises bigger questions about the identity again.
And that's the thing, right?
I sat there at half time, and if you follow us on Twitter, you probably see my sort of semi meltdown. I don't think it was a full meltdown.
It was tough at half time though.
It was just so hard to find any positives, and I was sat there thinking, what is this Norwich City side? What is their plan? What is their aim on and off the pitch? And like I say, if Norwich are going to go down that route of crossing the ball and sticking an experienced seasoned Championship centre forward up front who's renowned for his aerial presence, then that's a complete shift for everything that's almost been built over the last 3 years. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but it just feels a little bit sort of reductive in a way, and that it almost feels not pointless but perplexing, a little bit confusing.
Does it feel? To me, it feels a little bit like when Alex Neil lost 5-2 or 6-2 away at Newcastle, and we went from this really offensive team that we'd outscore the opposition to this team that just looked to defend, and that was how it feels like to me when we started the season. Is that we're almost scared to play football the way we know how to because we know that it didn't work out for us last year.
There's probably a few evidences of scars being raw.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's shown as well with the players that haven't been able to cope and missed out. I look at the Teemu Pukkis, the Kenny McLeans, those kind of players that you couldn't take off the pitch. Well, Farker can take off the pitch at least, and now you're kind of looking at it and they can't really or don't really deserve to be in the squad. I think to kind of, if we look more at dissecting the game itself, if we kind of take a close look at the first half now, again, I apologise, I'm going to have to only go off kind of the main events, if you like, as opposed to, kind of yourself who watched it all. I guess if we're starting from the complete start, because we have to, obviously there was a lot of errors in that kind of build up to that goal. You've got the main initial one from Tim Krul. It was a really poor kick. Okay, he was put under pressure a little bit with the amount of time he had to get it away, but even so, we've kind of always we've alluded to it before, Tim Krul's kicking and distribution has never been a positive. We've mentioned it so many times on here, endless amounts, that his ability to kind of distribute the ball, especially out towards the wings, is not something to kind of fantasize about. And something, I recall Hull at home the year we went up, 3-1 up, or no, 2-0 up, I think, at the time. I think we won 3-2 in the end. And, he gives the ball away needlessly in a very similar situation, and they score from it. And it was the exact same. Obviously, there was still a lot from his kick which could go wrong. Didn't help he kicked it to the smallest player on the pitch. Against a physical team like Rotherham, who aerially would look to dominate us in that kind of position, and then the ball has somehow gone through about 3 different players. I think it was Oliver Skipp, Grant Hanley, and in between him and Ben Gibson. And as good as a finish as it is, because there was still a little bit to do, and he had to kind of preempt it. It was so easy, so easy. I mean, what was your kind of take on the goal in terms of the early stages, obviously, the game as well? I know it was very early, it's 4 minutes in, but did you kind of see it going that way from the first 5 minutes open?
Well, Norwich, I think, if I recall correctly, they had a chance within a minute, so Norwich started quite brightly, and basically it was just an end-to-end game. But that moment, that goal, it brought all the memories of the Premier League back, and you're looking at that going, well, we've seen that all too often. yeah, like you say, there was 4 defensive errors, and you'd expect maybe 1 or 2, but for 4 to happen and nothing to be done about it was too reminiscent of last season, to be honest. And you mentioned Tim Krul's distribution, and that is maybe the only criticism we have of Tim Krul. And like I say, you can't criticise Max Aarons for not being tall enough.
No, absolutely.
It was just a poor goal, really, and it just looked a little bit naive from Norwich at times.
And do you think an element of not cockiness to a degree, but do you?
I get what
you
you're
kind
trying
of
to say, yeah.
Because I feel like, you know, when you turn up to Rotherham, they're literally the kind of the oxymoron of us. Well, not really, in a way, in terms of they are us in League Two and between League One and the Championship. You know, they can go up every season under Paul Warren, but they just come straight back down, and it's ironically similar to how we are. And I think every time we've gone there, it's like a 2-1 game or something, and we kind of really have to grind out a result. And I don't know. I looked at that goal and thought, you know, we just think we can kind of play it around there like it's nothing, and you know, we'll be absolutely fine. And I feel like we got it in a weird way. A goal like that was always going to come with the way that we're playing at the moment. It was just probably helped us that it was so early. It allowed us the entire game to really get our feet back into it.
I always say, I think the goal you alluded to earlier, the whole, and okay, yeah, we're casting our minds back a little bit, but when Norwich are playing out from the back and Tim Krul's playing it out wide to the flanks or through the middle, and it gets intercepted.
Yeah.
When the pass doesn't quite make it, I can excuse that, and I don't look at that going, that's the goalkeeper's fault. I go, that's just the way we play. Like, Norwich are probably going to concede a goal, 2 or 3 goals a season from that phase of play, or from that pattern of play rather. But you can excuse that because you know this is just how Norwich play. Like, but that wasn't really that case because the ball wasn't won, and then it's come through 2 or 3 players, and then the goal's gone in. So there's like 3 or 4 defensive mistakes, and it was just a poor goal, and it was rightfully deserved, in all honesty. And
it was a very kind of rookie error as well in the way that they let the ball bounce. You know, if Hanley is able to kind of even push up on that ball, or Skip able to drop back and even header that ball, or just I guess have a little bit more awareness in there between the 3 of them. I'm not really going to put kind of Ben Gibson in there too much, because I think it wasn't Ben Gibson's man, and it didn't come really down Ben Gibson's side. It was I guess more responsibility on Grant Hanley, but I guess anyway, nonetheless, obviously that's the kind of first crucial bit on there. You know, we go 1-0 down. After that, how did we respond? How did we play after that?
Not great. Like, obviously, the penalty came not shortly after, but you know, during that half as well, and that's a big moment.
That was the turning point, wasn't it? Mentally,
like turning point, but like, I mean, it was almost like 180 point.
Okay.
Like it wasn't like they missed that penalty and then Norwich all of a sudden it rejuvenates them. Like, it was like they missed that penalty, but it almost killed Rotherham off, but didn't ignite. Us in a way. That's the way I looked at it, and I didn't really like Norwich didn't take advantage of that. And it sort of like Rotherham obviously suffered from that, and their confidence probably went a little bit. And if that goal goes in, like, this could be. It's already quite a pessimistic podcast. This would be even worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could have been a completely different story, and it'd have been really fascinating to see the rhetoric around Norwich at that point. Obviously, like I said, at half time going in, I was very disappointed and very frustrated at Norwich, and it just brought back all the haunts of the Premier League and the displeasure of the transfer window, sort of 2 or 3 transfer windows now, and I think brought it all back, to be honest.
There's no kind of alluding to the fact, and I don't know if this is absolutely correct, but to my knowledge at least, off the top of my head, the last time that we come back in a game and won was probably Bristol City at home, the year we went up.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Or around that point. There wasn't really many other instances where we went 1-0 down and then come back. Again, that might be wrong, but in my mind, obviously, I know that we didn't do it at all in the Premier League. Of course, we got the point at home to Preston, but we didn't beat them. So it's been a long time. It's been a long, long time since we really come back. So you've got to feel that. I mean, even at 1-0, you're asking, but at 2-0, if that penalty goes in, there is absolutely no coming back there. I mean, surely. So I definitely think you've summed up right in the way that you've said. Kind of, it didn't kill Norwich. Sorry, it didn't ignite Norwich, but it did kind of kill Rotherham off to a degree. in terms of the penalty, are we putting it down to a great save or a poor penalty?
Yeah, like, there's a few people saying like it was a really good save, but I'm looking at it going, it's kind of like halfway between the centre and the post, so it's kind of in the middle for Tim Krul.
It was a good hand. Let's give him that. It was a good hand. It's a poor penalty though,
like
isn't
you're talking about. If you're talking about Tim Krul's strengths, if we're talking about his strengths, then that penalty saving is them, and you'd back him all day to save a penalty of that quality. But yeah, like it was obviously a big moment, and Tim Krul, give him his, he's gone the right way. Absolutely. You're just asking him to make the save, and he's done that.
And like so many times before, unfortunately, when he stepped up in the Premier League, we lost every game pretty much. But I'm looking back at, I remember the Man United at homes and those kind of games. You bet your house that it'd save a penalty. I remember Arsenal at home before it got retaken again. You just feel like he's just undefeatable, in that kind of penalty environment.
I have a lot more confidence over him.
It must be so imposing though, as a player stepping up against him, knowing how, especially kind of Louis van Gaal's antics where he subbed him on for Citizen that year when Citizen's never saved a penalty in his career, and then he went on to win them the shootout against Costa Rica, I think it was, and you've got to look at that and kind of, if you're a striker going up against him, I mean, he's one of the scarier figures to probably face.
100%.
And it definitely goes in our favour because I think, like I say, that moment, it could have been so different for us. And I think even though obviously it didn't initially kick us on, it gave us the option where we were only one behind. In terms of then obviously kind of first half, was there really any other kind of talking points you want to go over?
No, I can remember. It's a game I'm just trying to recite it. It's quite a lot, but there was Norwich had chances, but a lot of them felt like they were coming down due to Rotherham's mistakes, and Norwich were just carving them open easily, but not through individual quality. It was just there was just space to exploit, and Norwich missed some sitters, to be honest. And
to give
they
could
have gone in back. They could have gone in at half time level or maybe up, but probably been a bit disservice.
There was 2 or 3 saves in there which Jamal Blackman made, which were exceptional. You've got Adam Eder, who made one. I think was it Stiepermann that had one as well, where Lucas Rupp played a fantastic ball through on the fast break. So there's 2 chances there where he's pulled off some fantastic saves. I remember directly after Adam Eder gave away the penalty, he went up the other end, had a shot, fantastic save, just a bit wide. So everything was probably going against Norwich that first half, but again, it's that ability with the players that we have in our squad, the quality we have. We should be able to turn that around. How Emi Buendia is playing for a championship team. Why are we not able to turn that around? And that was my frustration looking at that first half. Was if we can go in against probably one of the teams that will be in the bottom, 3 to 5 teams. That's kind of not beat around the bush. How are we not absolutely annihilating them with the quality we have on the pitch? And I guess to a degree, as we kind of spoke about earlier, going into the second half, the individual brilliance that they had and the individual moments was really what kind of unlocked them in the end. Like I said, with the way we kind of carved through them before Emi Buendia passed out to Max Aarons, who made that run. And, I think, again, we kind of already alluded to it, so not to kind of go over it, but, the whole move, the cross, everything, it showed the quality we had in the squad. And that was almost a frustration, is that why is this not happening all the time? Even to kind of disregard this game and look at each individual game that we have, we only really have 1 or 2 moments of brilliance, and that's not enough. When we went up that year, we could have scored 10 some games. And I remember, sitting in the lower Barclay with the people around me, and we were 3-0 down on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day or something, Boxing Day to Nottingham Forest, and we sat there with 10 minutes to go, and we were like, yeah, we'll come back. If we went 1-0 down now, I'd probably sit there and go, I don't think we're going to come back. And it's crazy how that kind of not necessarily fan movement or whatnot, but how that's just changed, isn't it? But I guess kind of after that goal, the game completely turned on its head with the red card, which was a shocking tackle. I mean, that was...
Yeah, it's just really, like I said in my match review that I was just relieved to see Skip up and walk in, because, like I say, Skip's got his whole career ahead of him, and it could have ended it pretty prematurely.
But I guess to kind of... I think the thing is, right, is that it's never nice to see kind of one of those challenges go in, and I'm not kind of advocating for it at all, but I think from Skip's point of view, I think it's nice, as ridiculous as it sounds, to see that he didn't back out. He was 100, and that's what I think I've really kind of warmed to. And that's why I think, to be fair, that's why he's a very Jose Mourinho-esque player, because he doesn't back down, And I think that's the nice thing about him, is that if that's me in that scenario, I'm not going into that tackle.
I'm
when I see Angus McDonald running in, about to lunge in, you could see it in his eyes the minute that ball went to a 50-50. And, you know, I think as someone who's kind of been on the pitch when there's been a couple of leg breaks in even my career, if you could call it that, like, you can kind of preempt it coming. And those horrible 50-50s where you see two players running in, you're kind of like, is he going to do it? And I guess he did. But I guess, you know, going past that, obviously that gives us a clear advantage. And would you say we were lucky in the end with the fact that their mistake again allowed us to get that penalty?
I think... I don't know if lucky's the word, but I'm sat there thinking, okay, so it's taken a Rotherham missed penalty, an own goal, them to then get the red card, and then for them to then foul you
in the 95th
minute to win a penalty for you to get 3 points. And look, it's hard because I'm sat here thinking, okay, so Norwich have been a little bit fortuitous. They haven't had that same fortune in recent games. So, okay, is this even itself up?
Yeah.
And in all honesty, like, I don't feel comfortable making a sort of conclusion on it until we've had this week, because I said this week is pivotal for Norwich. Like, they need 9 points if they want to go up this season from this week. You've got Birmingham, Rotherham and Wickham. You have to win all those games, considering the start Norwich have had. They've put themselves in a position where, like, really, like, anything at less than 7 points just isn't good enough. And Norwich have got the first three, and we'll see now, coming forward, if Norwich were fortunate, or if that was a turning point, and if actually they, you know, we'll see whatever way it goes. And I don't know, like, if Norwich, if it was lucky, I'm not sure, but like I say,
well, and I guess to kind of add to your point there about it, you know, if you can kind of, it is tough to look at it, because you can look at a derby game and go, well, did it take a set penalty and then, you know, 11 men behind the ball and a Wayne Rooney masterclass to lose? So I definitely understand where you're coming from. And I think that's the problem, is that there's just too many questions right now. And I think the kind of one fair thing we can say is just the fact that I didn't feel happy that we won. I felt relief. I was like, okay, like, it's because if we lose that game, and I think, you know, we talk about meltdowns. Rob Butler had a bit of a meltdown apparently on the radio about asking to kind of have Farke sacked. And I think it was almost at that point where if we lost that was boiling point for a lot of people. A lot of people would have just, who haven't already, would have probably looked at that and gone, look, this just isn't working.
I think that's what it does. It buys more time. It doesn't seem to me at this point like a massive turning point.
Yeah.
Time will tell. But for me, it just felt, okay, you've got through this one, Farke. Maybe we can bring that. I think it almost feels a little bit harsh to just say Farke.
No, I agree.
We know how this system, we know how this operation works at Norwich, and it's not just Farke. So, like, maybe that is a little bit harsh, but I don't know. Like, it just felt like maybe it was just not almost papering over the cracks in ways. But like I say, we'll see, and we'll be able to make a better summary of things after this week for the next podcast. We're not that prolific winners in the Birmingham game. Just FYI.
Well, I guess to kind of look at the game as a whole then, and your man of the match. Now, again, I'm going to try and give my man of the match based off the kind of extended highlights and the kind of, I guess not just, because if not, I'd give it to Jordan Hugo, wouldn't I? So, I'm interested to kind of find out who your man of the match is, because from the sounds of it, and honestly, no one really played really good.
No, like, man of the match seems a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah, but I guess the kind of, if not, then if we instead of a specific man of the match, who was your impressive performance?
Well, I said in my match review, I mentioned two players, and it wasn't until I finished recording that I forgot to mention the third, so hence the tweet. But I couldn't really give it to Tim Krul, because I felt like his distribution obviously let him down for the first goal, and he made a few good saves, but I felt like it felt a little bit generous to give it to Tim Krul. The person I forgot about was Ben Gibson, and like I say, it wasn't until I finished recording that I completely forgot to talk about him, and I thought he was really impressive. You know, some of his stats I can't recite off the top of my head, but they were... It's
just his distribution, isn't it? His ability to pass the ball.
It's the left foot, Alfie.
It's the left-sided centre-back.
It just works so well, and it's not enough just having a left foot, but it certainly helps, and he was somebody who I was really impressed with. But on my review video, I did give it to Max Aarons, because I felt like it's just for me, he's just becoming more and more like our most important player.
Yeah, Which is weird because he's such an effectively irrelevant role, really, in a right back. Well, it's true, though, isn't it?
I know what you're trying to say. Like Norwich,
you can't really win a game with a right back. If it was a centre back, I'd probably go. If it was
like,
a striker or a winger, I feel like if we needed a player to come up really in that moment, I don't think you're really going to put reliance on a right back.
Although he's very insistent on cutting in on that left foot now.
Yeah.
Maybe we should play Max further forward. Maybe that's where we're going.
I would be interested to see what he'd play like, but I don't think it would. I don't think it'd be a good.
I did hear that he actually came into the club as a number 10. So then it was Norwich who shifted.
They went no.
Nah.
He left Luton as a number 10 and then got signed by us.
That's what we do here.
Well, I know. I again, then from kind of what I've read, I would say that my kind of main three performers would be Oliver Skipp, who is just a given. He's going to be an 8 out of 10 every single week. I mean, that man is probably one of the best signings I'd say we've made. Obviously, cost effectiveness coming into play because he's a loan signing. Ben Gibson, absolutely, because I think he just epitomises everything that I wish we had, really, since the day Farker walked in the door. I know we obviously went up and we've had Ben Godfrey and we've had Zimmerman, but we've always said a player who is like him would have just been fantastic for us, and it's so nice to have him, even if it is 3 years late or whatever. And then, like I say, Max Aarons, there's a reason why Lionel Messi's going to be leaving this summer, and it's because he's not going to be playing down the right hand side with him. So, but as I stressed, from the sounds of it as well, there just really wasn't anyone who's a 10 out of 10. It's not like,
the issue,
and again, looking at it, there's not really been any performances like that. The entire season, there's not been one game where I've gone, oh my god, wow! Like, no one scored a hat trick, no one's got a couple of goals and won us the game single-handedly. Yeah. It's been very much like, well, he didn't do too bad, so he'll, he kind of gets the man of the match. I mean, I guess that's a kind of, in itself a little bit of a critique, but I guess there's a wider picture. Hopefully over the coming games, as we kind of look ahead in a second to Birmingham.
If only.
Yeah, if only. I'm intrigued to see if anyone does step up, because we're approaching that time where, if we now go on and lose to Birmingham and to Wickham, what happens? Does Farker lose his job? Are there going to be players in the camp which want to step up?
Yeah, I think if Norwich lose to Wickham, there's got to be serious questions.
I think if anyone lose to Wickham,
with all due respect. I mean, it'll be interesting to see the next podcast, because obviously we'll have 2 games done, and it'll be interesting to see where we are in terms of our feelings. We might be talking about a rejuvenated Norwich City side, and that this is our season, but I think there's probably a few too many hurdles to overcome for that to be achieved.
I think the thing is, for me, is that even if we now go and beat both of these teams 4-0, I'm going to sit here and still say they're probably 2 of the weaker oppositions we're going to face this year.
Yeah.
There's no real test in this next 2 matches. So
that's a fair point.
I know I'll say this and I'll be absolutely raving about how great of a performance Oliver Skipp and Ben Gibson had in a 1-1 draw. But
minute cameo.
in a 3-1 loss with a consolation goal in the 95th minute. But I think in all seriousness, it's kind of clear to me that if we don't pick up 6 points, I would be more worried.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, maybe like Norwich can't really win from this situation.
No.
Like Norwich have an opportunity to build on something here, and we'll find out if it was like the Middlesbrough of this season in terms of the game,
absolutely.
Or if, like you say, it's just papering over the cracks, and Norwich were fortunate to get the winner at Rotherham. But it's hard to make too many judgments or predictions now. I mean, I would have thought Norwich will at least get 4 points from the next 2 games. But it'll be interesting to see sort of what happens at Birmingham.
Well, if we kind of look ahead to that game more specifically, Birmingham, I guess, and again, we're looking at this as kind of 2 Norwich fans. I haven't been completely studying the Birmingham.
I have no idea how they got on the weekend,
but
to be honest.
But I guess as I kind of said with every kind of match preview, Norwich should be coming in strength-wise on paper as the favourite in most games this season.
Yep.
And in terms of, I guess, the kind of finer details, like for example the team, are we expecting any changes? I feel like it's very Daniel Farke-esque to keep it the same because we've won. What are we thinking?
Yeah, I'll be surprised if there's changes. I mean, the only one that I can really think of is if Todd's fit.
Or Plaqueta, if he's fit. Is he getting the nod?
Yeah. Or is Todd giving the nod?
Wow. If anyone's giving the nod at this rate.
Just because Ida, maybe, he gave away the penalty, which is probably a little bit too much of a harsh criticism, but obviously not playing in such a position.
It was naive, wasn't it? It was naive.
It was a striker and a defender.
Yeah.
That's what it was. But I wouldn't be surprised maybe to see a more natural wide player come out on that flank. Just because I think it gives us a little bit more balance, and I love Ida, and you'll know I do, but not on the left side. I don't.
Does Jordan Hugill deserve to start? If Ida doesn't play, and not this question isn't who would you give the nod, because I know it would be Adam Ida, but who do you think realistically deserves a nod over? Because surely you're looking at this thinking Jordan Hugill. You saw how elated he was in his interviews. That's what I love about him, is that he just loves life, doesn't he? Like when goals going in, he just loves life. You know what I mean? He'll be in Bar and Beyond later on that night celebrating or something like that. And I think that's the thing for me, is he just looks so happy to be here and happy to score and win the game. And to me, that's what makes me smile. It's not Daniel Farke going, yes, we played well, because I'm used to that. It's the players themselves looking like they actually care about being. I think
it's nice to see the human element of footballers. I completely agree.
And I think that's surely if you're Daniel Farke now, he has to start, because you can't take a man from up here winning that game and then again.
I'll be very surprised if Hugo doesn't start on Tuesday, unless there's an injury or a rotation. I don't know, but.
Do we see Adam Ida starting on the left, or are we pretty confident we're saying Plaqueta or Todd if they're fit?
Yeah, I think you just maybe give them the benefit of the doubt, just because, like I say, Ida is quite considerably out of position in my opinion, and I think Norwich have a little bit more balance and a little bit more attacking prowess. I'll see Ida come on, but for me, in all due respect, Ida didn't do anything to deserve another start. He had some really good passages of play, but not out wide. And with Hugo getting the goal, it just feels like that's probably the way it's going to go.
No, I think I'm pretty happy to kind of say that, if you brought Todd into that kind of the picture there, you've got Todd, Sieferman, and Emi Buendia behind the Jordan Hugill striker. I mean that's HMS Pistol League, isn't it? Really, that's what we kind
HMS
of
are in the league.
I guess, is there kind of anything else you want to touch on in preparation for the Birmingham game? Any kind of things you're more worried about, whether it be individually, like how we think, and because I'm pretty confident with Ben Gibson and how he's shown himself in the last two games. Are we nervous at all about Grant Hanley at all? I know we spoke about him briefly, but like we said, he is only really there because Zinman's injured. Are we kind of anticipating Zinman's going to come back into the side?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think, like I say, we're talking about Ida coming up because he's out of position. I mean, Hanley certainly isn't at centre back, so it'll be interesting to see what Farke does there. In all honesty, I would be maybe give Hanley the nod and then just see what happens on Saturday, or we'll see what happens on Tuesday, and then for Saturday, if Zimmerman's fit, maybe bring him back if it doesn't go to plan. But I'd probably suggest that Hanley, or I presume that Hanley will get the nod.
Amazing. Well, that's probably a good point to kind of leave things off. Again, in terms of, I know we kind of bash on about this every week, but for those watching on YouTube, would appreciate it if you liked and subscribed to the video.
But let us know your thoughts as well. Let us know what you think, because there's maybe a few controversial opinions.
Well, I think as well, would like to kind of, because again, we're very much in a bubble where we talk a lot and we kind of discuss between us, so we kind of know our opinions before we come into it.
You say that, but we disagree entirely throughout the week, and then on Sunday we're like, yeah, 100%.
I think it's because we come to terms with each other's opinions, and we kind of as we're very emotional, aren't we? So I think it's very fair to say I'm more intrigued to find out if people are happy about the result or people are kind of more not necessarily upset about the result or frustrated about the result, but kind of feel a bit like us in the way that they're just a bit relieved that we've got the win and we've beaten Rotherham away, because that on paper is like one of the games you kind of absolutely. So if you have an opinion, whether it differs to ours or is you just kind of want to have a chat about it, if you don't want to leave a comment about it, you can get in touch with us on Twitter as well. Very active on Twitter for the good and the bad reasons. Likewise, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, Apple Podcasts and Spotify, there we go. Of course, if you're on Apple Podcasts, feel free to give us a 5-star review if you feel like we deserve it. And if you're listening on Spotify, if you could download it, just because then that's how we can tell if you've actually watched it. Until the next time, hopefully 6 points later, we'll see you next time.